Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
We're both in Rome right now, and this is our last day together. I have been here for the 2025 Bittersweet Life Roman Adventure. I've been here for a full 2 weeks, and today's my last day. And we just went out for a breakfast, you know, as you do when you have to say goodbye to a friend. And we're sitting on a park bench. We're recording this into Tiffany's phone if we sound any different than usual. And we just thought we'd sit down for a minute, and we haven't really recorded hardly any episodes while I've been here because the tour was so busy. We just didn't record anything extra besides the episode you heard last week. So we just thought we'd sit down together and just, chat, see what's up. So what's up?
Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day. I mean, it's gorgeous mid-October day. We're sitting in Piazza Cavour, which has recently been fixed up. So it's just absolutely beautiful here. Lots of green grass and palm trees and umbrella pines, and it's quite nice.
It is, and we're overshadowed by the courthouse, this giant, massive white building. And yet it doesn't feel like, like a courthouse where it's just like the hustle and bustle of people coming and going for court cases. There's just a lot of people just sort of kicking about, sitting on park benches, hanging out. We've had 3 dogs stop by and say hi already. So that's nice. But this is what you would consider in Rome. It feels, even though it looks beautiful and orchestrated, it feels like a much newer neighborhood than a lot of what we think of as historic Rome. Is it actually new?
Prati? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Prati is the neighborhood near the Vatican. And it's called Prati because that literally means meadows or lawns.
Okay.
Because there were, up until the time that this neighborhood was laid out, it was really just countryside. And it was all laid out after the unification of Italy and Rome becoming part of that in the 1870s and 80s. And it was done in the sort of northern Italian style. If you've ever been to Torino, it's a lot like Prati. The city is laid out much in the same way this neighborhood is laid out, or vice versa. This neighborhood was sort of modeled after Torino, where the new king of Italy was from. So
okay.
You were right. It is newer.
Well, one thing that might be kind of interesting to reflect on is we have talked a lot about on this show about the fact that this was a Jubilee year. Every 25 years, the church has a Jubilee year. It's been going on for a long time. In fact, on the tour, we even talked about the Jubilee year that happened in Caravaggio's time as a part of the tour. But every 25 years, a Jubilee happens, and a lot of pilgrims descend on the city of Rome to walk through holy doors and to visit basilicas and to do whatever else they've come here to do. And, we had a lot of concerns about going into this year. We were looking forward to how pretty things were going to be because they were doing massive restorations across the whole city. And my goodness, some of the things have been extremely beautiful this year. Just restored fountains and all manner of stuff, restored buildings. But we were worried about what the crowds would be like. And it does feel different to be here during the Jubilee, I think, as a person who drops into Rome once a year. For one, I've never, all of my years coming here, I've never seen a group of over 50 nuns together.
Yeah.
And I encountered that multiple times on this trip, where it's just like a huge group of nuns, and they're all walking together, taking pictures, buying souvenirs, It's very quaint. But I don't know, what have you made? You've been here for the entire Jubilee year. Now it's actually kind of coming to a close. Does it feel different to you in a Jubilee year versus another kind of year?
Honestly, not as much as I expected. In fact, I asked Claudio about it because Claudio was here in the year 2000, obviously. Mm-hmm. He was living in Rome, and he even volunteered that year. For part of the year, he was because I think he must have been, I don't know, how old would he have been? About 20? So, he was sort of at that age where you volunteer for stuff like this. He volunteered to work in St. Peter's Basilica to help pilgrims getting in and out. And I said, is it as crowded? Is it as crazy as the year 2000 was?
Uh-huh.
And he's like, no, absolutely not.
Really?
The year 2000 was way worse than this.
I wonder why. I wonder if that's because 2000 has that beautiful round number, like we very much talked about in the milestones, like the 600, the 2000. It feels important.
I think a lot of it was that. He said, being the turn of a millennium, obviously nobody alive had been through the turn of a millennium. Almost nobody alive had ever been through a turn of a century, you know? And there isn't even sort of like anything written about it. Because like anything written about the last millennium would have been written in the year 1000. And like, who's writing back then? And how would we have access to it? It's just, you know, very limited stuff.
That's true. That's a good point.
So he said his thought was that because it was the turn of a millennium, it was something so rare and so unprecedented that more people came because of that than they would have in an ordinary holy year. Mm-hmm. And he also seemed to think that John Paul II might have had something to do with it. Oh. John Paul II, having already been Pope for a good 20 years by that time, maybe a little more than 20 years, he was such a well-loved Pope, particularly with young people, that he thinks that a lot of it was John Paul II was the first Pope who ever really started to travel and just go all over the world and meet people and minister to people. And so there are probably people who had met John Paul in their home country on one of his, not met him maybe, but, you know, had seen him in an event in, you know, wherever they were living, Peru or, you know, China, Japan, wherever he was, and came to see him again. And, you know, I remember before the Holy Year started saying that to someone, and they said, well, Pope Francis is South American. Uh-huh. And, you know, the South Americans are crazy Catholics. So we're going to be inundated with South Americans in 2025, which I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people did come, but I haven't felt like, you know, walking through the city, it's just like the sea of bodies, you know, that I kind of expected. So I'm not sure. Of course, as we all know, Pope Francis dies 4 months into the year. Yeah. And we got a new Pope, which is also exciting. And Claudia's like, I feel like there's more Americans in Rome than usual. There's always lots of Americans in Rome, but he, you know, working in the Vatican has, you know, he sees more concentrated groups of tourists than I would see walking around even in the center of Rome. Right. And he's like, I feel like there's more Americans here than usual, and I think it's probably because of Pope Leo.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I was going to say, well, jury's out on Pope Leo a little bit, right? Still, you know, because he's still fairly new, as we're recording anyway. Do you feel like, I mean, but yeah, I could see how the excitement around a new Pope could bring people to the city, certainly. Do you have any idea, like, what I wasn't expecting when I thought about coming to a Jubilee year was the branding. So if you haven't been to Rome or you don't know what a Jubilee year is that, so there's all these pilgrims who are in town, and a lot of them, sometimes they're like wearing the flag of their country as kind of a cape almost. So you can sort of tell what different groups are from, which is fun, you know. Sometimes these groups are walking together singing. One group went by me the other day singing in 3-part harmony. Oh my gosh, they sounded so good. I was just like, well, wow, should I just follow them down the street and record them? But of course I missed it. But there is independent branding that has to do with the Jubilee year. It kind of looks like a row of people walking wearing flags on their back or like sails of a ship. You know what? You've seen the branding, right? They've chosen a bright green color as the color of the Jubilee. You know, and all the different priests, if they're leading a service, they're wearing these Jubilee-themed robes.
There's even a mascot.
Is there a mascot?
Yes,
what is it?
I can't remember, but Claudio bought little pins of the mascots for all of the catechism teachers at our church. Oh my gosh. And I'm like my mind is drawing a blank as to what this mascot is. Like I'm only thinking of like the Paris Olympic mascot,
right,
but I can't.
Which was a weird one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up, but there is a mascot.
Yeah, so I mean, and you can buy like silver coins with this symbol on it. You can get keychains. Of course, the merch is out of control, as you would imagine, which is something very strange about human society. You can't just go on a spiritual pilgrimage. You need a keychain to remember it by, which is a very strange thing. But I mean, I'm like, and you probably don't know the answer, but the whole time I've been going, who is tasked with coming up with the branding for a Jubilee year? Because they must have been given the extensive amount of merch and clothing that people can wear. They must have been planning this years ago to figure out what the symbols are. Did they write anything about it in the paper? Have you seen anything about how it came to be like this particular branding that you recall?
I have no knowledge of it. I don't really follow intricate Italian news, obscure Italian news, so I can't tell you. But I assume someone, who's working for the Vatican, who, an office of, I don't want to say marketing.
It could be marketing. Yeah. Interesting.
But they always do have this is the Jubilee. I think every Jubilee has a theme, at least in recent centuries, like the Jubilee of Hope or the Jubilee of Faith. I'm not sure what it is this year. I should know. I'm sure my priest told us when we went on our little pilgrimage back in May to St. Peter's. But there's always some kind of theme around it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I learned something else about, if we're going to talk about strange products that you can buy, because if you ever do visit Rome, there's a lot of products that you can buy. Some are of decent quality, many are not, but it doesn't really matter truly when people are deciding what they want to buy to remember their trip. And we had a couple people on our tour this year, and you know who you are, who were shopping for a souvenir, not for themselves, but for one of their neighbors. And they were looking for a product that they called the Popener. Now, I have been coming to Rome. I have lived here. I've been coming here for over a decade, and I had never heard of a Popener.
I'd never heard of it, and I live here for over 2 decades.
I know, a Popener. So, can I pause for a moment and you can guess, what a Popener is? I'm going to pause. And just yell it into the air. Okay, some of you are right and some of you are not. What it is, apparently, is a bottle opener that has the face of the Pope on it. Okay, and their neighbor has apparently been aware of the Popener for decades and has collected the various popes as Popeners. And so sending their friends come on our tour to Rome and they request, can you get us a Pope Leo Popener? I wasn't going to buy it for them because I thought this is their quest. But then I started looking for the Popeners as I was walking around. And I kid you not, I found so many Pope Francis Popeners. And I couldn't find any Leo Popeners. And then I started thinking, do we need to sell out of all the Pope Francis stuff before we get to all the new Leo merch? Is that possible? But turns out they were actually able to find the Leo Popener.
Oh, that's great.
Who knew? You can collect all 100? How many? Thousands? How many popes have there been?
There have been...
Probably not thousands.
Not thousands, but I think it's 200. I want to say 200 popes.
200 popes?
I didn't know about the Popener, but I do remember right when Pope Francis was elected, very, very shortly afterwards, they were selling what Italians called figurine of Pope Francis. Now, I didn't really know exactly what figurine were at the time because I didn't have a child, but now I know what figurine are. And basically what they are, they're a little booklet of stickers that goes in a special album. So the idea is you buy the album, and then you go to the store every so often and you buy a little packet of stickers, and you don't know what's in them because, so you have to hope that you don't get any doubles, but of course you always get some doubles, and you stick them in. And I never bought the album because I didn't really know. I just saw a little thing with Pope Francis's face, and I thought, well, this is going to be a good, collector's item. So long story short, I still have this little packet of Pope Francis stickers, and I'm like, now that he's gone, I wonder if that's valuable. I wonder if I could get something for them.
Gosh.
But I opened them up. So I have never stuck them on anything, but it's not a sealed packet. So I don't know. I have not seen a Pope Leo figurine album yet. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But usually you see this with things like soccer players or horses or princesses, something like that. So seeing a Pope Francis figurine set was, I thought, very, very fun and telling for, how life is so unusual sometimes in Rome.
It is unusual to have religious figures like trading cards, basically. I was telling you because it's my last day in Rome and it's the pilgrimage year, and my husband Derek's here with us, and he wanted to walk through the holy doors of St. Peter's, so we got up really early, to be a part of that Jubilee spirit. So we got up really early and we got in a gigantic line, which thankfully moved really fast, and we went through the doors and came back out. and I'm meeting you for breakfast, so I'm leaving Derek behind. He's going to wander around in the church some more. And I look up. I know you're close, but I'm not sure like the best way to get there. So I look it up. And this was another weird thing about living in Rome, where it said, the map said, notice, you will be crossing, what did it say? International territories on this walk. Which, because, Vatican City is its own thing. It's its own country. Yeah. So, and I'm just like, what a funny note when I'm walking like less than 20 minutes. You will be crossing international territory on this walk. I mean, just another weird thing about living in Rome, that it has like this mini Vatican country in it,
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of totally unique things about Rome that living here you can sometimes forget. Mm-hmm. And it takes someone coming in from outside to remind you of how bizarre and special Rome can be to live in sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you own besides the Pope Francis stickers that you would consider tourist kitsch that they sell to tourists?
I mean, I do have a couple magnets. Okay. They're not kitschy magnets, but they are actually done by an artist who I think is really good, but they are sold in souvenir shops. Other than that, Katie, I don't know. Oh, my son, he has one of those Roman soldier helmets. Does that count?
Yeah, that counts, of course.
Because he went through a phase where he was just obsessed with Roman soldiers. And so, we've had to buy 2 of those because they wear out. Eventually all the feathers fall out.
They're not made for quality. That's part of the thing about kitschy stuff, is it's not made to last, for sure. So obviously, because it's a Jubilee year, I've been trying to not only lead a tour group of people and show them the greatest things of Rome, but I've been trying to enjoy the fact that it's a special year here, and that's making a point to go see some of the fountains that have been cleaned up, and making a point to walk through the holy doors at St. Peter's. But the only reason, to be honest with you, that I was willing to wait, when I showed up at St. Peter's this morning and I saw the line, and not knowing how long that line was going to take, because it's not just a skinny line. Those of you listening, I want you to picture
10 people wide.
10 people wide, and you're basically corralled like cattle. You're just being moved through between 2 fences. Can't see anything. The only kid that can see anything is the one sitting on his dad's shoulders. The rest of us are just in a cattle run. But the only reason I really was willing to sit and wait was because I wanted to go in and see the Pietà, which, can you describe what the Pietà is if people don't know what that is? It's a statue by...
It's by Michelangelo. You've probably seen an image of it. If it,
Google it right now.
Google it right now. The Pietà, Pieta, and it is a sculpture in marble of the Virgin Mary holding the dead body of Christ after he has been crucified and mourning over his body. Yes. And it is one of the most moving works of art I think ever made.
I would agree. And here's the interesting thing. And and I hadn't seen it in a decade. I hadn't seen it since we lived here. And here's the interesting thing. Every church you go into in Rome, or even around the world, you're going to see depictions of a dead Jesus Christ. That's one of the number one things you find in a church. Him risen, him dead, him being born, I guess, right time of year. But they, we talked about this a bit on the tour, is why certain artists stand out over other artists, particularly when they're all dealing with the same material. Everybody in Rome, as you mentioned on the tour, everyone who was a working artist during prolific times in Rome were working for the church. So they're all telling the same stories. They're all painting the same saints. They're all painting Mary and Jesus and Joseph and everybody. They're all doing the same thing. And this statue, he manages to capture the humanity of what it's not about, the risen Christ or the dead Christ in the way that we think about it biblically. It's about the loss of a mother holding her dead child. And it's just as sad as if that child was a baby in her arms, except he's a grown adult. And the way that she's looking at him and the way she's even holding him, he almost has this fragile infant type affect to how she's holding on to him. You just look at that and you go, this is her dead child. And it's also, there's something about how it's carved too, where it's so realistic that you almost think that she could look up at you at any moment when you're looking at it. Like she has this expression on her face of that kind of like coming of deep sorrow. It's almost like it's going to go darker from here, you know? And you can almost picture like her, this feeling of overwhelming loss while she's looking down at the body of her dead son in her arms. And you can see that her face from where it is in the moment could crumple even further. And you can almost picture her like with tears in her eyes looking up at you. And it's a marble statue, like it's not going to move. And I don't know, I just find it ridiculously moving. It's like what you talk about with Caravaggio. It's like these artists that can take these biblical stories and turn them into like how we feel as actual living human beings now. You know, like that sense of loss. He captures it and says, these aren't just saints. This is a feeling you know. You know.
Of course, and in his time, of course, it would be very common for a mother to lose a child. It would probably be extremely rare to have a mother of multiple children who hadn't lost one and hadn't gone through that and felt that.
Mm-hmm. So all the more so.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about that sculpture, which I think you probably picked up on even if you didn't notice it consciously, is that Mary is very, very big compared to Christ. The way that it was sculpted, and there were many reasons that he did this, but the way that it was sculpted, her lap is enormous. The anatomy is not correct. I mean, it's not supposed to be correct. If Christ were to stand up and she were to stand up, she would tower over him. She'd be a couple of feet taller than him. And you can just see that by looking at the size of her legs. I mean, you can't really see her legs because she's in a dress and she's got Christ draped over her lap. But you can, if someone points it out to you while you're looking at it, you're like, oh yeah, you're right. And so one of the reasons for that was simply because he wanted to make it in the perfect sort of pyramidical shape, which is what the Renaissance ideal shape for a work of art was, a triangle or pyramid. So it naturally had to be bottom heavy. But that's just part of it. I think that a deeper meaning for that is that she is like the mother of humanity, right? She must be bigger than her child. Even though he's a grown adult, she needs to be bigger than him because she needs to be able to have the sense of she's cradling him in her arms like as if he were a baby. And I think that does, you put it in a different way than I've ever really even thought about it. But it does feel, he makes him feel more delicate and more fragile because he's so much smaller than her. But there's another reason.
Okay.
And that is that he lost his mother when he was a little boy.
Oh.
And Mary, at the time that Christ died, would have been around 50 years old, roughly. And that's not the face of a 50-year-old woman. That's the face of like a 16-year-old girl, or anyways, 20 maximum. She would have been a young woman because her face is so young. And so, the sort of accepted interpretation of art historians is this is actually not the Virgin Mary at the moment that her son dies. This is the Virgin Mary at the moment her son is born. She's holding her baby. And you know how when you see a work of the Virgin and Child, Mary almost always looks sad? And I always used to wonder at that when I was young. I was like, why does Mary always look so sad? I mean, her son has just been born. She's just given birth to
you don't see a lot of grinning.
I've always wondered that. It's because Mary knows. She knows the sacrifice that she's going to be called upon to make. She knows, even when he's a baby, that she's going to lose him. And so she's mourning already, even before he's gone. When she's holding the baby in her arms, she's having a vision of what will be. And that's another reason for her exaggerated size. And some people have said maybe that was his mother's face that he remembers as a child as well.
So was she... do you remember how old he was when his mother died?
I don't remember the exact age, but I want to say it was around 6 or 7.
Okay, so quite young, yeah. And he lives to be quite old, so... Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing about this statue. And there's so much talent in this city, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, a lot of it has passed away, obviously. But, we were just saying, like, he made this statue... Even when I was with Derek, I said, he was really young when I made this statue. He was like in his teens or early 20s. And he looked at me surprised and said, really? I would have thought it would be one of the last things he ever did. And I mean, and that's like the level of skill it's at, where you're like, how did somebody become able to do this by such a young age? and move on to make other great things. Like, I feel like it does have that feeling of like, this is the pinnacle. Like, I've trained my whole life to create this statue that can make people cry while standing in front of it just because there's so much emotion in it. And yet it's like, no, this is the start. This is the beginning. I mean, do you think he did anything better?
I mean, that's a matter of opinion, but I think some people would say that the David is his greatest work. I think there's like this, that's sort of like there's like two factions, like the people who prefer the David and the people who prefer the Pietà. So I don't think that there's a definitive answer on that. There's also the Moses, which is incredible. And I think that he would have wanted to sculpt more in his life, but he was pushed into spending a lot of his time frescoing. Of course, some people would say the Sistine Chapel is his greatest work.
Right. I know. I mean, it's nice to be an artist where you have so many great things to choose from, right? Where it's like everything he did was great. I mean, I'm sure he probably made some things that weren't great, you know? Don't you think? There must have been some things that ended up on the cutting room floor, so to speak. Or he like threw the statue over and was like, you know? I hope so anyway. I hope it wasn't like it was just his fingers were made of gold and he could just make whatever. But it's true that it is hard to choose. I think for me personally, I would choose the Pietà as his best work of art. Mm-hmm. And maybe like, you know, and of course the Dome of St. Peter's, because it's such a dominant feature in Rome, the big blue dome. You'd have to give him some credit for making that too, just because it's so visual.
For sure.
Yeah. How about you?
My favorite Michelangelo work.
Yeah, you can only have one in your home.
In my home.
Okay, if it's in my home, I might go Sistine Chapel. But no, okay, go ahead. No, you don't have to have it in your home. But if you could only choose one thing.
Oh. If I had to look at it constantly,
yeah,
I think I'd rather look at the David.
Okay, I've never seen the David in person.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I think it's a better work.
But it would look good in a bathroom.
Yeah, I think that for me the Pietà is so heavy with pathos and with like religious heaviness and religious weight that it's something that I'm okay with seeing really rarely. Like, I'm glad I've seen it and I wouldn't mind seeing it again. I would like to see it again someday, but it's not something that I would want like in my peripheral vision. Does that make sense?
You don't want it in your yard?
Yeah, like it's too weighty to be part of everyday life.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, because it does bring out a lot of sorrow.
Yeah.
When you look at it, for sure.
And it's physically weighty. It's like this big block of stone, whereas the David is this slender, like elongated, you know, I mean, gorgeous man also.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Yeah, true. Well, before we end, is there anything you want to like leave us with as we like end this tour week? How was it for you? We had our biggest group of people, and by biggest, I'm like it's 13 because we don't like to go too big.
You know, we like to keep it nice and intimate,
nice and small, nice and intimate. You know, and I have been heartwarmed by the fact that we have all separated each other's company, and yet they're still all texting each other and sending us pictures and stuff. So clearly they seem to, as a group, really hit it off and make some new friends, which I love.
They
amazing.
did, yeah. I constantly go back to, sorry, there was a fly on my nose.
Landed on your nose.
To this sort of sense of the privilege of introducing people to Rome. And then this time we had a lot of people who were second, third, fourth time coming to Rome.
Yeah, that's right.
But even if you've been to Rome before, even if you think you've seen Rome, we go very, very deep.
Yeah. And
as we've talked about many times before, we show you the side of Rome that you might not even know is out there. And a lot of, 99% of tourists don't see. And it's a great privilege to be able to introduce people to one of the greatest collections of culture and art in the world, which is the city of Rome.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And to find out, because we've only done it 3 years, everyone is very vivid in our minds. It's not like we've been doing this for 50 years and we can't remember what group came before or whatever. It's always very interesting to me too to see like what it is that captivates different people, because everybody has, like, for me it's traffic. I love this kind of thing. I'm joking. Although I have seen some hilarious traffic things while I was here, but we'll get into that at another time. But I think it's so interesting too that everybody kind of picks up on something different. Like they all find something fascinating, and for every person it's different. So for some people it might be, we walk across a first century bridge and they want to touch the stones that have been there for that long. They get a lot of connection out of touching the old things and being a part of like that human connection over hundreds and hundreds of years. Other people get super interested in Byzantine art, or like we had a person on our tour this time that actually took a mosaic class, or, it's fun to see what people pick up on and what makes it meaningful to them, because we're showing a bunch of different stuff. We're throwing a smattering of interesting things and just sort of being like, well, what do you think? Like, what do you pick up on? What are you going to remember? I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, me too. That's one of the things I always ask people at the end of the trip. What was your favorite thing? And not everybody can answer because there's so much, but the answers are always different. There's the person who loved that Baroque church by Borromini. There's another person who, it was the Tempietto, the true perfect Renaissance perfection. Like you said, some people love the medieval art. Some people love the ancient layers. And everybody has their own thing that really gets them.
It's so true.
Or if you're like me, you can just be in love with street names.
That's right. I know. That's another thing Tiffany does. She tells us what the street's actually named and why it's actually named that. There's just so many layers. It's amazing. And I by the time I'm here for 2 weeks, I always get into a rhythm with it where it starts to feel impossible that I'm not going to be here. You just get into like the rhythm of life here. And so again, I'm faced with that amazing quandary of like, oh, tomorrow I have to get up really early and go get on a plane and go back to where I live in the United States. How strange. Don't I live here now?
I'm still trying to get Katy to move back here. Maybe 6 months out of the year, Katy?
Maybe someday. Yeah,
maybe someday soon.
Maybe someday maybe I don't know about soon. I probably have to be like more semi-retired, but maybe. You never know. Maybe, yeah. I won't rule it out. We'll see. Okay. Well, let's leave it there. Great tour, everyone who came along. Thanks so much for coming. I know I said it at our final dinner, but thanks so much for coming. We had a great time hanging out with you guys, and we couldn't have gotten better weather. My goodness. When I first got here, it was kind of chilly, and I'm like, oh no, is it going to be cold the whole time? Nope.
It's been absolutely gorgeous. Like the clouds have been almost non-existent and just beautiful, warm, sunny days.
Just blue sky. Look,
you can't see a cloud.
Not a single cloud. Bright blue. Everyone's just chilling. It's great. All right, well, we're going to leave it there. I'm going to say goodbye to Tiffany, and until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again.
Bye.
Don't miss your chance to explore the Rome most tourists never get to see by coming to Rome with us. We'll take you through the history, art, and stories of Rome in a way that you will never forget. Visit thebittersweetlife.net for more information, or email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com.